Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the show. And as you can tell, today we are joined by a very special guest indeed. You may know her best as Crystal from season one and season two of the hit show Skymed. Today we are joined by Morgan Holmstrom. Morgan, how are you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic. It is such a privilege to have you on the show. Um, I have to tell you, like I told, because I've interviewed Mercedes previously from the show, and I have to tell you, all of you as a collective have done such an incredible job with SkyMed. The work you've done is absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Uh, so of course, I know a lot of people that are going to be watching this really want to get to know about SkyMed. But I'm going to kind of make them wait just a little bit because I'd really like people get to know you. So
Mhm.
I'd like to kind of first ask you, how did you get involved and start in acting?
It was kind of by accident. I was modeling when I was a kid, and my modeling agent at the time, this was in Winnipeg, she was like, "Hey, there's a movie in town. Maybe you'd think about auditioning because they were looking for some local talent." And I turned it down because I didn't want to do acting. And then she was like, "No, no, like just get some classes, get to take some lessons and see where it goes." So I asked my mom, and my mom was like, "Maybe you should just do it." And I said, "Okay, fine." So I took some classes and ended up loving it. And didn't look back after that. I was still doing school at the time, like I was taking science in university, and then I basically just dropped out of university and pursued acting. So yeah, it was kind of by accident, but a happy accident.
It's funny that I always find that is quite a common thing with a lot of people I've spoken to. It's kind of like some people know from since they were super young, but there's a huge number of people that kind of they just happily just kind of fell into it, and then this kind of incredible career blossomed. Um, so sort of growing up, what were your kind of like go-to kind of shows and movies, especially when you kind of decided acting was something you actually wanted to do?
Well, funny enough, I was a huge fan of medical shows, um, which is very serendipitous. Like I would watch House with my dad a lot, Grey's Anatomy, and he worked in the medical field too for a long time. So it was just something that we loved to watch. So I probably watched like every medical show that there is, um, which is very funny being on this show now. Um, but yeah, I mean, I grew up watching those shows, so that's kind
Oh,
of what I do.
that's so
Yeah.
cool. So do you feel then like now having been especially on a set like this, and as a viewer, the medical terminology, it just doesn't register in my brain at all. Like, how do you find learning the lines, and especially with a character like Crystal? Some of the lines you have to learn are very intricate, very technical and detailed. How do you kind of find learning those lines?
I mean, some of them can be a little challenging when they're a mouthful of things you just have to get out, especially those scenes when we're walking down the hallway and you're bringing the patient in and spurting out a bunch of lines of what they're going through. So those can be challenging, but um, you practice them as much as you can, and luckily we have people on set that can help us if we have any questions. I don't know what I would do without them. um, just going at it ourselves. But yeah, it doesn't get it after a while. You start to get used to it, and by the several episodes, and you're like, oh yeah, we're back in business. So
It's phenomenal. For me, again, like I said, I can imagine. I understand the kind of repetition with it, with doing the consistent lines, and you kind of get to understand, especially terminology and things. Um, did you kind of get any kind of training, or whether it's medical training, or is there anything you kind of did to help you prep for the role as Crystal?
Yeah, I mean, for season 1 and season 2, actually, we did medical training and, they did pilot training as well. So, we had a full day where they taught us all the basics that we would need to know, putting an IV in and, doing CPR, checking the ABCs, like, all of those things. So, at least it would look we are going into set kind of knowing what we're doing. Um, and right before we do scenes, they will kind of teach us what we need to do, and they'll like in the morning, they'll kind of go through whatever procedures we need to do and make sure we know exactly what we're doing. It's pretty forgiving on set, because we're cutting and pasting things together, so it's not like we're doing it maybe looks like we're doing it for real, but they got that movie magic in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, but we do some training, and we were able to go into a plane as well, and
Wow.
that was really cool. They flew us over from Winnipeg to Brandon, so it's like a hour flight, and we kind of got to see what it's like to be in those really small planes. So that was really awesome. Um, yeah.
So being in those very small, intricate planes then, how does that feel? And can you kind of put yourself in that mindset of actually having to perform these kind of medical procedures kind of on the planes? How was it kind of for you on there?
Yeah, I mean, for the planes we have a rigged plane on in our studio, so it has all of the to make it look like it's real. The plane actually moves with us. Um, so that makes it feel a little bit more real and actually what it feels like when you're flying. And in those little planes, it's pretty cramped in there. So having all of your supplies and everything and having another nurse, it starts to get pretty claustrophobic. So I really feel for flight nurses that are doing this every single day. Um, but yeah, it's pretty invigorating, I might say.
So with obviously I know of course it's like movie TV shows, so I know there would have been like a pressure on you. How do you feel with the bits you've been taught you would feel in like a survival kind of situation? How do you feel you would fare at that?
I mean, at this point, I think I could do okay. With some of the training that we've been given. They're actually teaching us CPR and everything, so I think I'd be able to hold my own a little bit. Um, some of the crystal will come out in an emergency, but
For
yeah.
sure. So one thing that I love with Skymed, and I love this, from the very first season, is I love the complete diversity of characters. And what I love is that to me, and from a viewers, and I feel like it's quite a generic thing, is that there doesn't really feel like there's just one main character. It feels like the group is a collective main source. Um, how does it feel to kind of work in that kind of environment? And do you feel like that is a good reason why the show's doing as well as it's doing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, going into season 1, we knew that this was gonna be an ensemble cast and that it was gonna be really a team effort for all of us. So we had Zoom calls to make sure, and we had meetings with each other to make sure that we're getting to know each other and we're all on the same page. And we had a lot of bonding, especially on season 1. And I think it just made season 2 that much better because we really knew each other. We're already like a family. But also, I think with all of our characters too, there's a little bit of something in every character that someone can like and find a piece of themselves in or see themselves in the characters. So I think everyone played their character arc so beautifully, and it makes it all all the more better. Playing off of these beautiful talented actors, but then um getting to work with them on set and playing off of them it's just a dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is definitely a big part because it's quite for me it feels like it's quite rare that we get to see that kind of I guess kind of setup where there is a collective just a complete team effort. I know on a lot of TV shows and movies there's a lot of people behind the scenes, but there's always that one focal point. And I feel like this show doesn't have that. It kind of breaks that barrier, which I think is really refreshing to see.
Mhm.
Um, for the while you were shooting season one specifically, I might have got my timescales wrong, but was that during? Were you kind of still in a, not like a pandemic, but were there still restrictions for you to be on set?
Yeah, yeah, there was still restrictions. We were still wearing masks and we still had to be, 6 feet apart unless we were actually acting with each other. Then we take the masks off and then, we have to put them back on right after our scenes and, COVID testing and all that stuff. So it was very much still in that pandemic. Um,
Yes. Yeah. So how for you, just for you personally, how was that comparison to work during with those restrictions from season one, and then obviously to season two? I'm assuming it was a lot more, certainly light, if not removed completely. How was the kind of comparisons for you?
yeah, I mean, I appreciate having the safety on set and making sure that everyone was safe first and foremost. But it was nice kind of going back to normal life for season two and, seeing people's faces and be like, oh, that's what your nose looks like. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time you're bonding with crew as well, and you don't actually get to see their faces ever. So
Yeah.
it's nice to actually connect with people again. And we were still kind of in the mix of um, following restrictions in season two, but then we were able to transition out of it by the end, because everything at that point had opened up and there was no mask restriction. So that was kind of nice to feel
Yeah.
like all set again.
Yeah, no, I completely feel that. I always remember, especially for, I mean, for you guys, I feel like it's a lot more challenging because for me, for in my personal life, I can very much work independent, so I'm content with not having to do with people, which is quite nice. Um, but I
Mhm.
feel like for you, it must be such a surreal thing to kind of, like you said, you're meeting new people for the first time and people that you're going to spend a lot of time with, whether it's behind the scenes cast members. Um, but to have that kind of barrier of like a mask and to have that distance, I can imagine there must have been some challenges. Um, do you feel that because of the cast that was on the show, it didn't really sort of factor into bonding, or do you feel that maybe it took a little bit longer than it maybe would have naturally?
I don't think it affected us too much. We were still all pretty close, even with our masks on set. We were all still really good friends. So it didn't really hinder us that much, I
Mm.
think. But it just in season two, we were able to build off of what we already had in season one. So I think we just picked up where we left off.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess kind of going back, just obviously before you started shooting, do you remember what your audition process was like?
Yeah, so I got the audition during summertime, I think of 2021. And I remember getting it and reading the character for Crystal and I was like, "Huh, that's nice." I like that character. She was the breakdown was like mama bear, mind the claws, someone who's really strong and she really takes charge and that kind of thing. And I saw that it was a medical show and I was like, well, damn, like that sounds awesome. So I had to film a tape for that. We were doing self tapes.
Oh yeah.
And like I didn't hear back for a couple weeks or something and I was like, "Oh, I guess I didn't get it." And then I ended up getting a call back. So I did like a Zoom call back with the producers and like Julie and Vanessa and one of the directors. And I felt like it went great and then, you kind of just leave it to the universe after that. You don't try and like hold on to it too much. And then I ended up getting it. I was supposed to do a chemistry read, but they wanted to do it over Zoom, and I think I was supposed to do that with Natasha. And they ended up just not doing that, and then we went straight to filming afterwards. So it was kind of surreal. Yeah.
Oh wow. So when you were when you kind of got the full arc of Crystal as the character, for you, how did you kind of first perceive the character to be? And then how do you feel kind of to the point today where we're at? How do you kind of now feel about playing Crystal?
Yeah, I think when I first read her, off the page, I'm trying to think, okay, who is this person? What has she gone through? What does her life look like? If someone is that strong, why is she that strong? Or why is she trying to be that strong? Why is she trying to be there for so many people? And why is she so protective of the people around her? And the new flight nurse coming in, like, where does that come from? And I was trying to understand, like, oh, there's a lot of um, perfectionism that Crystal is trying to achieve. She wants to be the person that has it all together, and that's for season one. I feel like perfectionism is quite a defense mechanism for people. If they're in control of everything, then nothing can go wrong. And I think for season one, I tried to play more into that. But then now in season two, Crystal is a student. So she really has to pull that back. And that's where I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I still bring that part of her in there, but understand that she does have to take a step back. She can't be the leader in this scenario. So yeah, it was a fun dynamic to play for both, definitely.
Funny you mention that. That was exactly almost word for word one of the questions I was just going to ask next.
Okay.
So it was like it's very much just like you just said. Season one, you can always tell that Crystal is just somebody that, like you said, kind of like the mama bear feeling, like she just cares for everyone, whoever they are as a person. And you can tell again, with kind of the brains behind her, is that she's very much she gets things done and she takes charge and she kind of gets from A to B with no kind of shortcuts. She just gets to the
Mhm.
point. Whereas, like you said, within season two, we kind of feel now that she's had to take a step back or as a essentially like a student understudy. So for you, how was it to go from literally going from being the lead in charge to then having to drop as an understudy? Did you feel there was challenges there?
Yeah, I think, there's a challenge in everything for season one and season two. They had their own challenges, and how to play that authentically for each season. I did really love the dynamic between Crystal and Dr. Yana because although they're very different, I think they're very similar in a lot of ways. And Dr. Yana kind of takes her under her wing. And they're both, don't take no crap kind of people. So even though they, in some ways, can butt heads, I think that Crystal still admires her in a lot of ways. And they kind of like feed off of each other, and they both learn from each other, even though Dr. Yan is obviously very experienced as an ER doctor. um, Crystal gets to kind of watch someone in their element and be like, oh, maybe I can do that too, but maybe in my own way, kind of thing. It doesn't have to look exactly like Dr. Yana. It can be her own path that she forges for herself, um, without, having to look like a direct blueprint of Dr. Yana.
Yeah, I just don't feel like that's for me, kind of getting to watch Crystal on camera, that just doesn't feel like that would be her whole kind of aura at all about being a carbon copy of somebody else. She takes the
Yeah.
information, she learns it, and then she turns it into her own kind of thing. Um, for yourself, out of everything across the show, what do you find was either a particular challenge or maybe one of the most challenging moments you personally experienced?
I think in the show, I mean, the procedures are pretty interesting to learn because we're kind of learning them the day before or the morning of. So having to do all the IVs and all the checks on people and making sure, you're going through the body and you're not missing anything, those can be a little bit challenging. Um, and also I think the in season one too, there's a dynamic between Crystal and Jeremy too that I was trying to understand and balance as well. That had its own little challenges. Um, but I think overall it's just fun to explore, and it's just fun to explore all of the different dynamics with each character and within Crystal. Um, and learn new things along the way too. I mean, in any other scenario, when would I be learning this stuff? So it's nice to kind of pick it up and try new things every time I'm on set. So it keeps it interesting.
Yeah, so with it being the kind of show that it is, do you feel not feel sorry, I suppose. Would you say that when it comes to kind of finding the character and learning and expressing, do you have quite a lot of free range to do what you want, or is sort of the script writing and maybe the directing, is it quite condensed so you kind of don't have that much freedom to explore?
I mean, when it comes to the medical stuff, there it is pretty condensed and it's really fast. So you have to kind of make your points very fast because they're snipping to each shot really quickly. So there's no time to kind of lag on what you're trying to say in those moments. But when it comes to, other scenes and scenarios, I think that everyone on set is pretty open to hearing our opinions. And I like to try and form my own little opinion and keep it pretty, have my own ideas. And then when I get to set, I just kind of let it go. Because if a director has a different view or they don't think it's going to work for the scene or the blocking isn't working, like I don't want to hold on to my ideas so tightly that I can't do anything else. So I think, you go in with your own opinion, but then you have to kind of let it go on the day and see what happens.
Right, yeah, exactly. I think that would be for me, that must be one of I suppose the most challenging things because I always hear it's funny for me when I hear that people have different experiences where they have the free range to quite literally do whatever they like, and then they have the polar opposite, which is just condensed and it has to be to the exact point. And I
Mhm.
feel like it says a lot about you, especially as an actor who you can find that kind of mid-range between finding the free roam but also keeping it condensed. I think that's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, every set is different. Sometimes it's like very open and then you can do whatever you want. And then sometimes they really want you to stick to the script. And sometimes you play around a little bit and you always kind of find your footing on set depending on who you're working with. You're always working with different directors too. And we had our showrunner there every day. So, if we had any questions or anything that we wanted to try or say differently, something's not coming out right, we'll just go to her and be like, "Can I say this instead, please?" And she'd be like, "Oh yeah, like, don't worry about it." So, it's still good to have flexibility in there sometimes.
For sure. Um, Something I have to ask you because right, so I'm from the UK. We have some kind of I would perceive as nice scenery, okay, but maybe from other people around the world might not necessarily believe that. Um, What is it like when we watch the show, the scenery is just like it's just jaw-dropping. It's something that I just don't to me, my brain sometimes can't conceive that's could be real. Um, what's it like to film in such beautiful scenery and areas?
I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, and we were filming season one and season two kind of throughout all of the seasons. So, season one, we were in summertime and then we went to winter by the end of filming. And then season two, we were in winter first and then went to summer. So, that was kind of nice to film into summertime and we're, ready to tan near the end. But the scenery up here is just beautiful. And for season one, we were in Winnipeg, and that's where I grew up. So it's beautiful prairies, and it just has such a hot sun all the time, and beautiful landscapes. It's very flat, like the land is very flat, but it just has beautiful sunsets over there. And then North Bay is like a little, kind of like a lake town, so it's on this beautiful lake called Lake Nipissing. And all of our sets were very close to there, and it was just gorgeous. Like I mean, we were going to set and we're like, wow, this is our job. So it's nice to be in those spaces.
I have to ask you, what from your experience, maybe whether it's on set, what temperature do you feel like the coldest it ever got to there?
Um, it got really cold. But near the end of season one, we were in like -40 at one point.
Oh no,
Uh,
not for
and
me.
that's why we had like our huge parkas that we were
Yeah.
wearing, because I mean we were gonna freeze.
Oh,
So we had our little warming huts that were on the side. They had warmers in our little tents that we were in. So we were trying to stay as toasty as we could. Um, but yeah, it was really cold.
I have a completely new respect for all of you working in those kind of temperatures. There's no shot I'm ever doing that. I just can't. I can't deal with the cold.
Yeah, it was pretty chilly. It was pretty chilly,
Yeah.
not gonna.
Um, for you, do you feel you can draw any similarities between yourself and Crystal?
Yeah, I think with Crystal and I, we're both very protective over the people we love. I would go to bat for people that I love and my close friends and community. And Crystal cares about her community too. I care deeply for mine as well. So, and you know, I think Crystal also likes to test people, new people that come into her life. I mean, I can be a little bit similar sometimes. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities I draw from myself and Crystal, and sometimes the lines get blurred between who's, you know, what's really me and what's really her. You don't always know, but um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's still fun to explore.
Oh, wow. I love that. Um, so for you, whether it was like on camera or behind the scenes, or maybe even just an experience in general, what would you say? Do you have like one particular like fond moment that really stands up in your head that happened?
I mean, all of the moments on set are just so fun. I mean, it's hard to draw from one. Um, There really is just so many. Sometimes it's just so fun when you're at the end of filming or you're at the very end of your day and we have like one scene left and all of us are sleep deprived and we all start getting very goofy because we've gotten no sleep and we're all just like kind of going a little insane. But in those moments, we're all just kind of behind the scenes, we're all laughing a lot and just having a lot of fun with each other. Um, I mean, some of the landscapes that we filmed in are just gorgeous, and so that's really fun to be with everyone. Um, there was like, oh, there was a beautiful scene we did for season one. I think it was episode two when there was a boat crash on a lake, and at the end of the day we were able to take the boat like into the sunset, and it was just the most beautiful like pink sunset ever. And I was just there with Natasha and Ace and Praneet, and we were all just like, wow, this is amazing. So that one stands out a lot.
Oh, it sounds like a dream, right? When you hear that, I just feel like that sounds like something that'd go in people's heads. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
really, yeah.
So season two is out. So season two has been out. I certainly I know over here it's been out a couple weeks. Um, for people watching that maybe haven't yet tuned into season two, what do you feel that they could expect from Crystal?
Well, Crystal is now a student and an understudy, so she is now not as in charge as she used to be. And there's a lot of things that she is grappling with when it comes to her identity, but also her position being in the medical field. And if she has what it takes to kind of take on being a doctor. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff that is happening this season.
Absolutely. Just quickly, I'd like to kind of go back a little bit to ask a couple more questions about you personally.
Yeah.
Um, so for yourself, if you could pick, like, it doesn't have to be a dream role, but maybe a genre or a type of movie or or a TV show, maybe even theatre work, um, what would that one kind of role be that you would really love to try your hand at?
I've been saying this a couple times. I really want to do a rom-com for some reason. I just I just love, and I just feel like it would just be so fun to do a cheesy rom-com. I haven't seen a lot of those in a while, like some good, like, um, just cheesy rom-comness from early 2000s kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, Sydney Sweeney just did a new rom-com I have to watch still, but yeah, I don't know why. I just really want to do one.
No, that's cool. You know, it's nice, it's refreshing to hear kind of different people's kind of opinions of what they'd like to do. So I'll always remember then, if I ever see you get announced to be doing a rom-com, then I know that you've done a medical and rom-com. You've hit the two
Yeah,
big ones for yourself already. That's cool.
it's my dream.
Um, so for yourself, Morgan, who or what inspires you?
I think a lot of people inspire me. I feel so lucky to have the people that I do around me, whether that's my friends or my family. Everyone is just such beautiful powerhouses. But specifically, like my mom and my grandma are just powerhouses of women and have gone through so much in their life, and they're still the kindest and most sweet people ever, and so incredibly humble. So I am super inspired by them and their um just their work ethic and how beautifully they take on life. So yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. It's really lovely to hear actually that it's kind of people close to you. And I definitely feel like that's something that a lot of people should, I guess, take from listening to this, is to try and draw inspiration from. Doesn't have to be somebody in an art form or a craft, but it can, you know, sometimes you draw inspiration from the closest people to you, or the people that you said have gone through so much, but yet no matter what happens, they've always got still a beautiful smile on their face and they're still just going through life. So that's beautiful to hear.
Mm.
Um, so if you could give people listening to this, Morgan, I suppose one piece of advice, what would that be?
Um, I would say to keep going. You don't know. You could, I mean, for me, the darkest points in my life has always been followed by some of the most beautiful experiences of my life. And if I was to not keep pushing and not, keep trudging along, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be doing this job and I wouldn't be, living my dreams. So I think just keep going, this too shall pass kind of thing. So, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Um, do you have any, obviously, other than season two of Skymed, and we're all going to keep our fingers crossed because I'm sure there's going to be more seasons to come. Do you have any more upcoming projects or anything that you want to kind of promote, or is there anything else you want to kind of share with people?
I do have a few projects coming up, but I can't speak about them just yet. But stay tuned. They should be coming out maybe later this year. So
Awesome. So I take it when they kind of, when you could finally announce it, would you kind of share it on your Instagram and social medias?
yeah, I will probably share it on my Instagram for sure.
Awesome. So what I'll do is I will link your Instagram to the top of the description, so people can kind of just go click the link and go straight to your social media, so they can kind of check you out and keep up to date with all your new work.
Awesome. That'd be great.
I want everyone who's watching, listening to this, to make sure you, if you haven't already, to check out season two of Skymed. It's on Paramount Plus. Um, Morgan, it has been such a privilege and an honor to get to speak to you. Truly, the work you have done for Skymed is really, really inspiring. And I think you have done such a phenomenal job on the show. And I really look forward to seeing where your career goes from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.